Okay, next, Canva. Again, controversial. Probably one of the apps that I use every day, Cursor. I'm gonna put Cursor in. I've spent the last few months building an AI startup with absolutely no coding experience. In this video, I'm going to tell you which tools are worth paying for and the ones that you can skip. Let me start with a very simple one that we all pretty much have access to, Apple Notes. So one of the key themes of a startup is you don't need to go overboard with how many apps and complex products that you're using. It's a startup. There might be one of you, there might be two of you. You don't need to overcomplicate it. For my to-do list for the day, I just use Apple Notes. It's easy, it's quick, it's very accessible. S tier. Probably one of the apps that I use every day, Cursor. I'm gonna put Cursor in A tier. Now, I'm using this thing every day and it's not S tier. Why? Cursor is a coding agent, but it also hosts other coding agents. And by that I mean you can use OpenAI's models, you can use Claude or Anthropic's models in Cursor, and that's what I do. The Cursor model, they have one called Composer, is probably not good enough for your daily driver for coding. And therefore, the only reason that I really use Cursor, and I'm on the free plan, is because it has a nicer UI with the Claude Code IDE extension. To be honest, once Claude ramp up their desktop app, I'll probably migrate directly to that. Or I know Theo's working on, I think, T3 code. Looks real nice. It's very similar to a Conductor or a Codex style of app, which I would recommend. Once that is working and it uses Claude's models, I will migrate over because I'm very Claude code pilled right now. Let's do Vercel. I will put Vercel A tier. The reason it's not S tier is price. So the developer experience is awesome. Even as someone untechnical like myself, it's really clear how to navigate around the platform. The language is easy to use, and they've really built the platform with agents in mind. So even having the option to copy logs as Markdown or download as JSON makes it super easy for an agent to access it. And really, the agent is doing the driving work here. You're not really making any changes based on the logs in Vercel. The reason it's not S tier is the pricing. So in startup land, pricing as it goes is pretty competitive. They know that they need to acquire you early because if you grow into a huge company, you'll probably start spending hundreds of thousands of dollars with them over time. Vercel is a little bit more harsh on its pricing. So even to add a second user, as soon as you do that, it's $20 extra, which is far beyond what I'm paying for some of these other tools. And that's in addition to what I'm already paying for the service that it offers, right? Clerk. Clerk is S tier. Now, if you're a huge company, maybe you don't want to be using Clerk because it has some API or scaling issues. As a startup, you're never going to run into these. It's super easy to set up. It's super affordable. I don't think I've paid a single dollar to Clerk yet, and everything pretty much works out the box. And let's remember, we're building this with coding agents. So what we really need is applications that have great APIs that the agent can understand and use easily. We're not setting up anything ourselves. We're always saying to the agent, hey, here's my Clerk credentials, here's my API key or variables, go and set the thing up. Clerk is awesome. Okay, Notion. Notion for me is B tier. Notion is actually something that gets better as your organization gets better and you value organization of documents more highly. As I said, Apple Notes is S tier. The reason we use Notion, if I want to capture something a little bit more rigidly that I now refer back to quite a lot. So an example I have is a wall of validation, which is when a customer gives us feedback that the product is really hitting their pain point. I like to screenshot that and keep it in a sort of shared space so we can all refer back to it. And things like as we grow headcount, even by 2 or 3, we'll start to use Notion a bit more for the product roadmap or the vision, just so everyone knows if I go to this page in Notion, I can see really clearly what we're working on next. But if you're 1 or 2 people, Notion is offering not a lot of value, but to be fair, it's completely free. All right, GitHub. Oof. A tier. A tier. So the reason why it was close to S tier is because look, GitHub is the thing that hosts all your code. Pretty much every tech company uses GitHub right now. They have huge market share and they have a lot of powerful capabilities. Now, the reason it's not S tier for me is because you will start to hit pricing issues and it's not crazy expensive, but things like running out of actions. So actions is something in GitHub where it executes a task, typically on a repeated nature. So an example for me is every day at midnight, we ship a new version of the app. so it has all the latest updates from the day before. That costs actions, and multiple times I've hit the actions limit and had to increase my budget because of this. There are optimizations you can do to sort of reduce action spend. I've done a lot of those and I'm still hitting limits. So that's why it's not S tier. I'm gonna put Lovable B tier. May get flamed in the comments for this, but for me, Lovable is not a product that you're gonna build a big business on. Now, they'll have some use cases that say otherwise, but for me, if you're serious about building a company that can scale, that has a world-class customer experience and the configuration that you want, for me, a prototyping app or natural language, for me, a prototyping app like Lovable is probably not your best bet, and you should take the small amount of time that it takes to learn a Claude code or a codex. So for me, B tier. Okay, next, Canva. Again, controversial. I actually worked next door to Canva for over a year in Sydney. Amazing offices, rooftop bar, they've got it all. For me, C tier. Canva is an excellent product. I've got no complaints about how it's built. You know, now that they do docs, they do sheets, they've implemented AI really well, but I haven't used it to build Demi. I've used it more in other roles, to be honest with you. The reason that it's lower now is because designing graphics, removing backgrounds, you know, these tasks that I kind of used Canva for in the past, they're getting easier to do with AI. And I'm using Claude Code to do most of this now, and I don't have any use for Canva at this point. All right, let's do some of the labs. Let's do OpenAI/ChatGPT. For me, B tier. For 99% of my day, I do not use OpenAI or ChatGPT products. I use Claude for everything. I don't value the 1 or 2% difference in models highly enough to keep switching. So some of you may use Gemini for writing and Claude for coding and ChatGPT for creative thinking. I just use Claude for everything. I don't think the difference is noticeable to keep switching, but each their own. The only thing I use GPT for now, and this will change, I've actually downloaded the iOS app for Claude, but the voice mode in ChatGPT is real nice. I do a lot of talk to text, so I talk into ChatGPT, and obviously it processes my response. I will say that's more for personal life stuff. So if I want to cook dinner for the night and I need some recipe inspiration, I'll do that. I typically don't use it for work at all. All right, Anthropic, S tier. Anthropic have been in the headlines a lot lately for good and bad reasons. I'm going to park all of that stuff and focus purely on how good is it as a product to build your startup, because that's, if you're watching this video, that's what you care about. For me, S tier. I've shipped 100,000 lines of code, built a product that people are using daily and paying into, all through Claude Code. I've learned a ton doing it, and I always think if this was 5 years ago and I was trying to build Demi 5 years ago, it would have taken months and months of multiple engineers working on it. And I've pretty much done it in 6 weeks on my own. So for me, amazing models, really pushing the boundaries in terms of the models and the ability to write code, S tier. Okay, chunky one, Slack, B tier, B tier. If I look at the rankings, Notion, Lovable, ChatGPT, Slack, it's probably in that bracket. I use Slack every day. Now, there's only 1 or 2 of us in the Slack workspace that I'm in for Demi, so we don't use it much in there. I do have design partners in there. We have about 7, so I post daily updates on what we've shipped there. However, the cons of Slack, obviously, as we know, as you get a bigger organization, the noise becomes overwhelming. And actually, in my customer research, I asked 100 founders, is Slack productive for you and your organization? The ones below 20 headcount said yes, they love it. The ones above 20 said it's a productivity killer. So it creates a lot of noise in your organization. It typically kills productivity, but bringing it back to, is it useful to build a startup? I honestly don't think you need Slack to build a startup. The reason I use it is because obviously we're building on top of Slack as a product. It's super useful to keep in touch with the features that they're using, pain points, and to communicate with our design partners, because most tech companies are using Slack. Another downside before I wrap up here is pricing. So for Demi, bear in mind I have myself, 1 other in the sort of Demi members workspace, and then I have 6 or 7 design partners who are external, but we're in a shared channel. I pay $40 a month for that. That is one of the most expensive tools. I think it might be the most expensive tool outside of Claude Code for a very basic messaging app. Pricing is insane. Okay, let's do Granola. So I use Granola. It's a simple note-taking app, but it has limitations. B tier. Reason it's a B tier, doesn't do video recording. So if you want to watch the video back, you can't. And at the moment, I'm on the free plan. It's limited in terms of usage, but apart from that, it's pretty good. What I will say about Granola is, as a product person myself, if you love great product, Granola is great in terms of how it feels, how it looks, the intuitiveness of the product. It's awesome. It's more around maybe just the feature lacking and the pricing for the reasons that it doesn't go higher. Okay, I'm going to do Helium now. Helium S tier. Now, can you build a startup on Chrome? Absolutely. Most startups are probably using Chrome, to be honest, more than capable. But I want to put you onto Helium. Helium is a Chrome fork, so it's based off of Chrome, but it's much, much faster. It has a built-in amazing ad block, and it's just much more streamlined. Less noise in the UI, more minimalistic, amazing. I think it's built by a solo developer. He's done a great job. I love Helium, highly recommend. Let's tick off the calendar management. Let's do VimCal. I used VimCal, I don't use it anymore. VimCal has some really cool features, such as you can very, very easily set your availability for an individual person and send them a link. For example, one of the uses I know is that if I have availability all week, but for a particular meeting I want it to happen at the start of the week, I can just drag on my availability in my calendar, click, copy link, send it to the person, and it dynamically will update the title based on their name when they book. It'll do person's name with Josh. Real nice. The issue I had with VimCal, and the reason I churned, is because even for the cheapest plan to get the web application, which is how I use my calendar, it's $20 a month, which is just insane for a calendar app. When Google has a free version. It's not as good, but it is free. And then I'll get to the one I'm using in a second. The other limitation of VimCal is it looks like they're trying to push you to a desktop app, which I do for Demi, so I completely understand why they're doing it. But at the same time, my calendar is just something I've never had in my desktop. And I'm so used to having it in a Chrome or Helium tab that I'm not prepared to change. And whilst they offer a web application for their calendar, I'm just really comfortable in Google Calendar. I've used it for like 8 years. And I'd rather it integrates directly into Google Calendar rather than having to switch my calendar provider. So the one I'm using, cal.com. So cal.com is an open source version of Calendly. I'm on a free tier and I haven't had any issues so far. It has the dynamic title update, so whoever books the meeting, it will dynamically update the title. It's real nice. The one thing it doesn't have that VimCal have is that availability. So just being able to quickly drag on your time slots, share a link with the user, so it's custom to them. For me, that was VimCal's best feature, and Cal doesn't have it yet. But for everything else, it's insane, free, no complaints. Stripe is an interesting one. For me, A tier. Now, what are the benefits of Stripe? Well, the APIs are really, really good, and they have pretty much every feature that you could ask for. So going back to that thesis of, hey, well, I'm giving this to an agent anyway, an agent will have no issues setting up Stripe. It works really well for international payments. The user just pays in their currency, and it's good to go. The downside, especially as you scale, is cost. They take a very large margin. I can't remember if it's like 2 or 3% of a transaction. That's quite a lot for a payment processor. So it's essentially 2 or 3% of your entire revenue is going to Stripe, which is bonkers. The reason that that's not super important as a startup is because for most startups, or especially venture-backed startups, you're not focusing on profit, you're focusing on growth, so revenue. If Stripe is the best thing to unlock that growth and revenue, go with Stripe. Okay, I'm gonna do Google S tier. So you do pay for Google. I can't remember what it's like. It's like $10 a month. But I do think the value you get with Google is just insane. Obviously, under the hood, you have Google Mail. You have Google Drive, which I use quite a lot for YouTube. You have just workspace management. It's easy to add users to Google. It's easy to create groups, add email aliases, Google Docs. It's just Google Sheets. Yeah, I think for like $10 a month, the value is really, really high. And are there better versions of all those individual tools out there? Yes. But again, it's easy and convenient to have it all in one ecosystem for so cheap. And everybody knows how to use these as well. So if you send someone a Google Sheets, they already know how to use it. Okay, one of my absolute favorites, the logo is super dark, not sure what's happened there. Superhuman. So I use Superhuman on top of Google Mail. So I never log into Google Mail. I'm always using Superhuman. And Superhuman effectively makes managing my emails effortless and super fast. The UI is very much keyboard based. I'm an ex-gamer. Using my keyboard is second nature to me, so I can navigate around really fast. The one con, and even though it's S tier and it still has a big con, is the price. It's about, I can't remember what it is, maybe 30 USD a month. So it's high, but I think if you get the efficiencies managing your email, but also you get to stay tapped into a world-class product. And I think understanding how a world-class product is built, what it should feel like, is a really good lesson in itself. For me, that value is justified to the cost. I'm gonna put Remotion in at A tier. So for those who haven't heard of Remotion, Remotion is essentially a motion graphic designer. It works seamlessly with Claude Code. It's what I built my pitch deck in. It's anything that has animations, I use Remotion. And it's a big reason why I don't use Canva. For anything that I would use Canva last year or even the year before, I can now do pretty much everything through Claude Code and Remotion. Supabase. So Supabase, A tier. Supabase is a database. So it's where I store my users, details about my users, how many tasks they've created, everything like that. Supabase is, I think it's an open source version of Firebase. It's really good. It's super reliable. It's very, very affordable. Again, I don't think I've paid any money to Supabase yet, which is just insane. The downside is I have noticed Claude can struggle with Supabase a little bit, running migrations. Sometimes they can time out. And often I just say to Claude, hey, just give me the SQL query and I'll run it myself and I'll go into Supabase and do it. And it seems to be much more reliable and quicker. So yeah, just a little bit of a challenge sometimes with coding agents. So that's why it's not an S tier. Okay, PostHog, A tier, A tier. It was between B and A. Look, I think it tracks analytics really well. It's easy for your agent to put new events into PostHog. I think sometimes the UI can be limiting. They haven't got some features that I would like, especially around sort of overtime views, retention analysis, which they have, but in a sort of basic form. And I really like their implementation of AI. I can't remember what it's called, but the little hedgehog that you can click that opens up the sidebar is really useful, really impactful as well. I think limitations of PostHog, like, my honest truth is at this scale, you know, if you're sub 1,000 customers, sub 100 customers, analytics, you can probably get all of the insights just by talking to your customers directly. So, you know, as you scale, analytics become more important. But you know, if you're early, very, very early, then just talk to your customers directly. But what I will say, haven't paid anything for PostHog. It's absolutely free. So the value to cost is, okay, Figma, D tier, the first D. Figma is a wonderful product. It's highly and well built. If you're a designer, it's one of those products that just has insane product market fit. It really resonates with designers. But I don't have a designer in Demi. I've done everything in Claude Code and Remotion, as I say, using skills primarily. So giving a skill to Claude and saying, hey, you're a world-class product designer. You need to design all of the UI UX. It does it pretty good. Occasionally I will use a tool, I haven't got it listed here, but it's called Super Design by an old friend, Jason, which if I need some inspiration on the UX for a certain feature, especially bigger ones, then I'll throw it into Super Design. But mostly, well, I don't even know if I have a Figma account for Demi. I've used it in previous roles, but for Demi, I haven't used it. Okay, Fathom. I don't think this is the right logo for Fathom, but it's the note taker. It's a B tier. It's the same as Granola. I think at this level, note takers are not hugely important, ironically. I think just taking notes in Apple Notes or on your pen and paper is more than capable for this stage, especially when you're pretty much the one speaking to all the customers, so you have all the context anyway. As you scale, I think note takers become more important because it's important to circulate that knowledge and also refer back to it as you're juggling lots of different projects. The benefit of Fathom is it has video storage, so you can record and store the videos. Granola doesn't have that, but I do think the UX is a little bit worse. I think how Fathom appears in a call with that really ugly thumbnail. I'm not sure how it's been this long and they still have that, but yeah, not essential for a startup. And then finally, 11 Labs. So this is really product and startup dependent. So B tier for me, the reason is we don't use voice in Demi anymore. We did it at some point, but we deprecated that product because it wasn't needed anymore. And therefore, look, you don't need a voice provider, transcriber, or voice AI agent in every startup. Now, that said, if you do have a voice agent as part of your product, 11 Labs would be a strong S tier. It's an incredibly built product, very, very good API-wise, so for your agents, and you just look at their growth. I think like 2 or 3 years ago, they were a pre-seed or seed stage company, and now they're, I don't know what their valuation was, like $6 billion or something recently. So amazing growth in the last few years. Great product, but not essential for a startup. Right, so let's review the S tiers, because they're really the ones that I think everyone should be using, right? So Apple Notes, S tier. Clerk, yep, that would be what I would use for auth. Anthropic, so yes, I use the Claude models. I think I would highly recommend the Claude models if you're building your own startup. Helium, as a browser, I just think it's the best browser, has very little drawbacks. Google Workspace, yeah, I don't even know what else I would use. I'm not using Microsoft Shop, so for sure Google. And then Superhuman, yeah, maybe a bit biased on the Superhuman one. You definitely don't need that to build a startup, but I love it. It's one of my favorite products, so it stays. So that is my ranking of apps to build an AI startup. Feel free to flame me in the comments or tell me which AI apps that you're using and highly recommend.